I'm Gelbart555, and today I'm continuing my series of MASH retro reviews with Season 5, Episode 13, Exorcism. So, in this episode, the campaign is being plagued by a lot of bad luck. No, seriously, a lot of bad luck. And also, too, there's a patient who keeps on coming back to the camp because he keeps on getting injured. There's also, too, a Korean man stepped in front of an ambulance hoping to drive the evil spirits away and hoping the ambulance driver would stop in time. That failed. He got injured, but he doesn't want to receive medical treatment until the camp is excised of evil spirits. So basically this episode is very interesting and also, I would say, decently respectful of Korean beliefs, of indigenous local Korean beliefs. And while they definitely do some jokes in that, sometimes at the expense of the beliefs, the jokes are more about the character's reaction to those beliefs, while the beliefs themselves are generally respected by the narrative, because after the exorcism, all of a sudden, the lights start working again, the PA system starts working again. So the narrative itself is supportive of those beliefs. The spirit post that Kunaparta asked Radar to move earlier in the episode is put back where the locals had left it. It is a very interesting episode because, I'm just going to bring up, I've also doing a series of retro reviews for Gilligan's Island, and in the episode Waiting for Watubi, while they had a much more, I would say, narratively dismissive review of the native, or I should say of the superstitions, because there's actually no natives there to portray those beliefs, just the skipper believing them, though they do show that even though none of the other characters believed in them and all that, they do show that they treated the skipper's beliefs in those native superstitions, as the professor referred to them, seriously, but still more comically than this episode does. In fact, we see in this episode the exorcism actually performed, and what is interesting is that the actress who played the Korean shaman, for lack of a better term, she's entirely uncredited. The wiki actually specifies that she is an actual Korean Mudang shaman who lived in the local area. Now, is there any proof of this? No, but at least the Wikia is claiming, and everything else I've read seems to support that, everything about how she performed the ceremony, the exorcism that we saw on screen, is very accurate or very close to what the actual beliefs and the actual practices would be. Which is, I would say, very interesting, because MASH has a bad habit of not having actual Koreans to do Korean stuff. And actually, that spirit post I mentioned earlier has Chinese characters on it rather than Korean. Though China has had an influence on Korean actual, Korean history. So has Japan as well. Look up the history if you are not aware of it. Hasn't been great for Korea. But what is very interesting is that, while most of the characters are shown not to believe in it, a lot are shown to be curious and respectful. And I would say this is signified most with Farrell who, you would expect to be, the most opposed to this. That's actually Frank, who's the most opposed to all this stuff. But it does make sense, because many people have noted that Farrell is one of the best representatives of Christianity in media. There's other good representatives as well, but one of the best. Opening, insightful, thoughtful. He has his own beliefs, but he clearly, throughout the show, respects it. He has this line where he, when prompted about the Korean exorcism that's going to be performed, Frank's opposed to it and all that, and Father McKay's response is, "Wondrous is man in mysterious ways of God." That's not a quote from the Bible or anything. The wiki says it's not a real quote. Well, it is a real quote now because someone said it on screen. But that is a sentiment I've seen expressed a lot of times among Christianity. Is, wondrous is man, mysterious the ways of God. We don't know everything is essentially what it says, and there are a lot of things about man, our power over our minds, if you will. But basically, it's a platitude that Father McKay is expressing, that he may not necessarily believe it, but he sure wants to see it and experience it and understand. So on this episode, there's multiple instances of Father McKay explaining to the other characters the local Korean beliefs and all that. And he treats them as beliefs, not superstitions, which is how characters like Colonel Parker treat the beliefs more of. Frank doesn't even treat them as superstitions, as just dismissive and as cons. That's Frank for you. Though after the light gets back, he says that's not going to happen again. As he's leaving the OR, he knocks on the door. Not want to jinx himself, I guess. And then, of course, the ending gag has BJ and Hawkeye playing a prank on Frank, pretending to exercise his radio to get back to work. Really was BJ just unplugging and then plugging it back in. But, of course, making fun of Frank for not being respectful of said beliefs. Hawkeye is actually given a set of traditional bells, more for decoration than actual exorcism, as the episode literally states. But for allowing that to, allowing it, asking for the exorcism to be held so that way the Korean girl's grandfather would be able to be treated. He's given that as a gift. And what I also liked is the exorcist, she's wearing a mask in post-op. So that implies that she stopped to sing, to put on a mask, then continue to sing, which is also very neat. Because not only does that show that everyone in the camp respected her doing that, but she also respected that she needed to be wearing a mask in post-op in order to prevent any kind of accidental disease transmission or contamination or anything like that, which is showing respect going both ways. Like I said, compared this to some of the earlier episodes of MASH and how local Korean culture is treated, very stereotypically, very that, this one seems much more respectful, which I find refreshing. MASH does, in terms of representing Koreans, does get better. In terms of actors and actresses, it's still not the best. But this episode is definitely a spotlight in, I would say, a positive representation. Now, that exact perspective would vary from person to person, but the fact that everything seems about the rituals that we see take place in this episode seems accurate, seems respectful, and that the characters who is most dismissive gets made fun of for not being respectful, and the characters who were dismissive but even if I don't believe it, let's allow them to continue. Let's not offend anyone for disrespecting their beliefs. And that's, I think, a very good message in this episode. Was it the intended message? Probably not. I think the message was more of, you never know. I also think that may have been the message. And in some ways, that quote from Father McKay I mentioned earlier is that wondrous is man, mysterious the ways of God is basically like, we don't know everything. There's many wondrous things out there. We should respect everything, even if we don't necessarily agree or believe in it. That's the message I'm taking away from this episode, and I would say the most positive depiction of local Korean culture to date so far in MASH. And there was actually another line from Father McKay where he says that the Koreans have practiced almost every faith under the sun or something to that effect. Which, yeah, there's Christians in Korea. There's lots of local beliefs. I know Confucianism, Buddhism has also shown there as well. And who knows what else has been practiced on there before and after. Because, there are things, like New Age religions and that. So, this episode, I think, is very respectful. If you disagree with me, do let me know in the comment section down below. But I do very much appreciate that the narrative of the episode does not treat the native beliefs as superstitions. It's only certain characters who do, and the one who decides, basically to continue making fun of it at the end is basically made fun of for not believing, or at least not respecting, while the ones who, they may not necessarily believe, but they're not going to be disrespectful to it. Which I think is a very good lesson, a very good narrative, and something that more of us need to pay attention to. It doesn't have to be just about religion. It can be about really anything. But that's what I got to say. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching my latest retro review. I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please be sure to give this video a like. Also, consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't done so already, and I hope to see you for my very next video.